In 1974, Petros was 16, living peacefully in his Cyprus village with his farming family. Today, he's in his 60s and still can't go home, because there's a military buffer zone with soldiers and barbed wire blocking his path. Petros is one of over 210,000 people who lost their homes when Cyprus was divided. Greek families fled south, Turkish families fled north. 50 years later, their children and grandchildren are still separated by Europe's last divided capital. This isn't just a sad family story. This division is blocking billions in energy development, creating tensions within NATO, and it didn't happen by accident. So, how did an island of neighbors become a militarized border that still affects global politics today? Before 1974, Greeks and Turks lived side by side on this strategically vital island. They were neighbors, business partners, sometimes friends. But by 1963, politics turned them into enemies. Turkish Cypriots were forced into isolated enclaves, surrounded communities like West Berlin during the Cold War. For 11 years, they lived under what the UN called virtual imprisonment. Meanwhile, Greek Cypriots controlled most of the island, but lived in fear of escalating violence. Both communities suffered attacks, displacement, and the constant threat of wars to come. Imagine your neighborhood surrounded by hostile checkpoints for over a decade. That was reality for both communities by 1974. By 1974, Greek extremists had a plan. Unite Cyprus with Greece and eliminate the Turkish population. In a 1976 interview, Cyprus President Makarios claimed that Greek military leader Dimitrios Ioannidis had told him to attack Turkish Cypriots suddenly everywhere on the island and eliminate them to the last one. Makarios said he refused, but in July 1974, these extremists staged a coup, installing Nicosia, a man with a documented history of killing Turkish civilians. Turkey invaded on July 20th to protect Turkish enclaves. Initially limited, arguably illegal under international treaty, but 3 weeks later, Turkey launched a massive second operation, seizing 37% of the island. This expansion killed over 120 Greek Cypriot civilians in villages like Marata and Santalaris. Both communities became victims of extremist violence. But here's what neither side tells you. A third player was pulling strings behind the scenes. According to historian William Mallinson's analysis of declassified State Department cables, the CIA warned Henry Kissinger on June 29, 1974, that Greek coup preparations were underway. Mallinson argues that America chose not to prevent the crisis, seeing strategic advantage in Cyprus's division during the Cold War. A unified Cyprus might align with the Soviet Union, but a divided Cyprus would keep both halves dependent on Western protection. Consider this: if you knew your neighbors were about to start shooting, would you try to stop it? Or would you let it happen because it served your interests? Over 210,000 people lost their homes in weeks. 162,000 Greek Cypriots fled their ancestral villages in the north. Farmers leaving olive groves their families had tended to for generations. Shop owners abandoning businesses built over lifetimes. 50,000 Turkish Cypriots headed north, leaving behind homes in the south they'd never see again. You're a parent in 1974. Extremists control your government. Foreign troops are landing. You have 2 hours to pack. What do you take? What do you leave behind? 2,001 people vanished during the violence. 1,508 Greek Cypriots and 493 Turkish Cypriots. The UN has identified 766 bodies from mass graves. Over 1,200 families are still waiting to learn what happened to their loved ones. For Greek Cypriots, the losses went beyond homes. Ancient Orthodox churches in the north were abandoned or destroyed. Entire villages like Varosha became ghost towns, sealed off for 50 years. According to the University of Cyprus, Greek Cypriot property in the north is worth over 82 billion today. Land, homes and businesses that families built over centuries, now inaccessible across a military line. Imagine if half your city was suddenly off limits, and you could see your childhood home from a distance but never visit it. Greek Cypriots and most of the international community see this as illegal occupation. UN Resolution 541 declared Northern Cyprus legally invalid. The European Court ruled Turkey violated multiple articles of international law and owes billions in compensation. Turkish Cypriots counter that they faced systematic persecution and credible genocide threats. They see international isolation as punishment for surviving. The 1960 treaty gave Turkey guarantor rights, and they argue they still need protection from potential future violence. These legal arguments matter because Cyprus sits on massive energy wealth. In 2011, the Aphrodite gas field discovery revealed reserves that could power Europe for years. But the division means that these resources can't be fully developed. Cyprus has signed deals with Egypt and Israel to build pipelines. But Turkey blocks drilling ships, claiming Turkish Cypriots deserve equal access to any energy revenues. So, who's right? The answer could affect energy prices across Europe. The tensions are escalating. Turkish warships now regularly escort drilling vessels into waters Cyprus considers its exclusive economic zone. Greece threatens military response to protect Cyprus's rights. The EU has imposed sanctions on Turkish officials involved in drilling operations. These are all NATO allies. Greece, Turkey and Cyprus as an EU member, potentially confronting each other over resources that could benefit everyone if they could agree to share them. Meanwhile, the island's legal complexity has made it a haven for questionable financial flows. European Parliament investigations revealed that Cyprus's investment programs attracted over 200 billion in Russian money, much of it from oligarchs now under sanctions for supporting Putin's war in Ukraine. The division creates regulatory gaps that sophisticated money launderers can exploit, turning Cyprus's tragedy into a tool for avoiding international sanctions. But there's hope. Young Cypriots see division as absurd. They cross the buffer zone to study, work, even fall in love. Opinion polls show majorities on both sides support reunification, with property rights, security guarantees and political equality for both communities. Remember Petros from Zodeia village? He spent 50 years unable to visit the orchard his family tended to for generations. At his age, he probably never will return. But young Turkish and Greek Cypriots are crossing that buffer zone to build friendships their parents never could. The question isn't whether Petros will see his village again. It's whether his grandchildren will inherit another 50 years of division, or whether leaders will finally choose compromise over conflict. Looking at this 50-year conflict, what do you think matters more? Following international law or protecting people's safety? Both communities have legitimate fears based on real violence they suffered. Let me know your thoughts. And if this story surprised you, imagine what other ancient ethnic conflicts are actually shaped by modern power politics. I'll fact check whatever you suggest.